Let's call the meeting to order. It's 7 o'clock-ish. For the folks on Zoom, we're going to do something a little different tonight. I logged in on my laptop so I can actually see the slides and see all of you. So if I do something stupid, it was my idea. If it's really great, Virgil made it play like he normally does. First of all, I want to start out with new member recognition. Do we have any new members? Visitors, we have one visitor. Virgil, do you want to do the intro? Or do you want Evan to do the intro? Evan, stand up. I'll do the introduction. Come on, Evan, stand up in the back of the room. This is Evan. He is Virgil's son. He started out as a technician a day or two before Visalia, and he recently, last week or two, I believe, upgraded to general. And his call sign is KK7, Mike Germany, London. There's some other things that go with that, but we're going to welcome him under KK7 MGL. He's going to be working on his extra probably later this year, maybe first part of next year sometime. Virgil's shaking his head no. So but I've operated in Arizona QSO party with Evan as a guest operator. He's really good on sideband, and he's 11 years old. So Evan, welcome as a guest. Thank you. By way of introduction, I'll start off. I'm John N7NWL, and I'm responsible for all the mistakes that everybody doesn't make except me. And I'm going to pass it off to Bob BHM, and we'll pass the mic around the room.
Okay, it's on, I guess. Bob K7BHM, and I lucked out and I swept the 13 colonies.
I know K7OGT.
Ingrid, W7ISG.
Mike, N7MW.
Ron, WA0KDS.
Dave, N7RK.
Eric, K7ES.
Bill, Alpha 4, Quebec.
Evan, KK7MGL.
Gary, KC7CS.
Norm, N9AV.
Walt, NJ8G.
Steve, N7TX.
I'm Ned AA7A.
Tom, NQ7R.
I'm Virgil, K7VZ.
How you doing? I was wondering who was moving the camera.
Yeah, also on our Zoom, we have, let's start out with Jim N7US, if you'd start.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jim N7US from Northern Illinois, where it's like 70 degrees.
Lee, KY7M, Portable 6.
Israel. K7ING, South Tempe.
Israel, K7NO, North Phoenix.
This is Bob, NA7RH, here in Scottsdale, where it's 109.
I guess I'll go. I'm Rob, N7QT, Redmond, Washington.
Yeah, thanks everybody on Zoom. I appreciate it. We picked up Doug. Would you do a quick intro for yourself, please, sir? I think we've got Doug K9 Radio Zulu also on Zoom. I lost visual on him a minute ago, but that's okay. I do that every now and then. Couple of things. Rob, N7QT, is our presenter tonight. And in researching him a little bit, after talking to Virgil, I went to the QRZ.com webpage for Tango 88 Whiskey Alpha. And Rob does a number of phenomenal things. He's got more DXpeditions than I've got, contacts with, like California, which is not a big thing. But if you want to see what Rob and his team has done and his teams have done, go to the QRZ.com page for the Tango 88 Whiskey Alpha. And I think there's also a Tango88WhiskeyAlpha.com that may have a bunch of other stuff on there. Anyway, that's a short introduction. I'm going to try and not mess it up any more than that. Rob, you have the floor and I will be quiet.
All right, thank you very much. I'm Rob, N7QT. I've been a ham since I was a kid. I think I was first licensed as a novice in Seattle. I must have been about 14 or 15 years old, primarily a CW operator through most of my amateur radio career. I picked up a microphone probably on my third or fourth expedition when I realized my customers wanted more than just CW. So I basically transitioned to SSB and RIDI and then eventually FT8. Let me share my screen so you guys can see the slide deck. Hopefully you guys see that okay. Now let's keep our fingers crossed that this works. I'm going to switch to presenter view for me and hopefully you guys still see the slides. Okay, so this is a shot. Go ahead. So this is a shot of our view from Palau. This expedition is really about no matter how well you've planned or no matter how well that you plan an expedition, how carefully you've planned, stuff happens. And everything that could go wrong with this expedition went wrong. But in the end, there was a silver lining and we really had a blast. So much so that the folks that were with me on this expedition, when it all ended, said, where are we going next? My team members were rookies from the Western Washington DX Club. I'm president of the Western Washington DX Club. And I had a bunch of rookies approach me saying, hey, we'd love to go on an expedition. Would you take us? And this is where we decided to go. Jack, N7JP is an EMT who lives up in the San Juan Islands. He works for the county and was a wonderful asset to the team. We called him Jack Power and Light, as you will see. Brian Moran, N980G, very, very good friend of mine, MIT grad, one of the smartest guys that I've met, has started 4 or 5 startups, sold them all, and I think he officially retired this last February. And you guys obviously know me. Robin is CPA, and she basically got bit by the bug. And so now she's organizing expeditions going forward. And then we've got Justin, A5EM. He's owned several companies. His last company was a drone company that ended up getting sold. And he's now a consultant. But with the exception of Brian, all of these guys have never been on an expedition, though they were major contesters. So why did we pick Palau? None of us had been there. It had an extensive World War II history. And it had never been activated on 60 meters. And so those were some of the major reasons we decided to give Palau a try. It took about 45 hours from Washington through Guam to get to Palau. And as you can see on the map, here's the azimuthal map. Here's North America, here's South America. Directly below it is Australia, and next door is Papua New Guinea, and obviously Asia and Africa. And here's sort of where it's centered on the map. Here's a zoom in photograph of Palau. And as you can see, Papua New Guinea is directly south of it, and the Philippines up to the northwest. This image down here is the capital of Palau, Koror. And this this red circle up here was where we ended up operating from. We chose, May of last year, we chose to operate from the Carolines. As you can see, it's located at the very, very top of this hill. In this direction, due north is North America, west is Europe. Based off of this location, we studied the topology maps. We decided to have a vertical for 160 two big IRs. We were strictly Elecraft transceivers. We had high-powered bandpass filters. We ran two KWS amplifiers with one Elecraft 500 watt, and we chose 2K4 KIO hex beams. In about a month before we leave to head to Palau, I had to call Caroline's to add a date on the front of the expedition and a day on the back. And needless to say, the answer from the reservation desk was, your reservations have been canceled. And we were like, what do you mean? Who canceled it? And it was an error on their part, even though we've been working with them for months. Someone made a mistake. At this point, they had no record of our reservations. I forwarded them some of the emails. The problem was they had already booked a lot of the rooms that we wanted to operate from. So what we ended up doing was working on plan B. So Caroline's is now out. We happened to find site on the Chol Village, in the Chol Village Community Center. It's also known as the Bai. It's their typhoon shelter for this village. And this is location, as you can see, centered here. Beautiful location, 360 degrees all around, wide open, plenty of room for antennas. And it's located on Babeldab Island. And we were gonna operate, they had 240 volt mains, power mains, they had air conditioning, internet, a beautiful road led up to this place built by our military. And there are about 7,000 people that live on this island, though they are extremely poor. So this was our choice. One of the things that I decided to do was I started looking at YouTube at some of the videos of expeditions that had used this location before. And one of the things that kind of struck me was a lot, I'd probably say 2 or 3 of the videos talked about the amount of noise that they had on some of the amateur radio bands. This is our accommodations. We selected M&A bungalows located about a mile from the Bai. And in this photograph that you see here, this is the M&A beach bungalows located right down here on the ocean. And this building at the very, very top of this hill, that is the Bai, and it's located about a mile away. So we were fairly close. It turns out we were the only guest for the majority of our 2-week stay. And they basically provided us all the meals, all inclusive, great location. And again, I've circled the Bai at the very top. So after looking at some of the YouTube videos, I recruited Gary Shirk, as you can see up here in this corner, Tango 88 Sugar Sugar, and asked him to go up and check the noise on the different amateur radio bands. Gary sends me a recording, a video of the different bands, and the noise is atrocious. So Gary suggested we ship him an ultrasonic noise finding device. He had friends, lead engineers at the power company, and he was going to work with them to try and figure out if it's the transformer, if it's, you know, some of the insulators. So big thank you to DX Engineering. They basically shipped 2 or 3 day air, one of these devices to Gary, and he then handed it off to the power company to start looking for the source of the noise. Unfortunately, the power company did not find the source of the noise. So we knew coming in that we were going to have to get involved. So this is, we flew into Palau November 1st. So early, the evening of November 1st. So the first thing, November 2nd, is Justin and I get out there with an SDR radio, a laptop, and a loop antenna. And we are working with the power company, trying to find the source of the noise. We went all over. We also had difficulty trying to find it. The interesting thing is that in some cases, we would point this noise finding device towards the ground and we would pick up even more noise. And I'll just let you know that months after we left, they discovered that there were power lines that were running underground that were arcing. Hence, that was the reasons when we sort of pointed this device down to the ground, we were hearing so much noise. November 2nd, later that morning, our equipment got delivered to the buy. CTSI was the logistics company that shipped our stuff. We shipped about 2,000 pounds of gear in about 33 containers, ocean going. And so it arrived mid-afternoon on November 2nd. We decided, even though we detected all this noise, that we would put up our hex beam just to test it out. And here is the end results. The results were not good. Essentially, the buy was unusable.
No audio, Rob.
Oh, you have no audio? Oh, I'm glad you said that. Let me stop that. Hang on. Do I have to, let me see here. Hang on here. Wonder why that was. What am I missing here? Should I end the slide and try and do it again? Ned, ideas? Hang on here, because I thought there was.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you have to change your audio source or I think it's something in Zoom.
All right, I'm gonna just shut her down for a bit. We'll start over again. And I think there's a setting when I first started to share the audio. Hang on here. Okay, sorry. We'll start over again here. Let me just stop the share.
Yeah, I know. Sharing video audio is always a challenge in Zoom.
I know, but usually it's, let me get this started from current slide. Okay, start from current slide and let me share it again. Hang on. There is a setting when I do share to share screen options. Let's see, advanced sharing. Hang on, just let me share screen. There we go, share sound. All right, here we go. And I hope now, which is just a sec, we're close. All right, hang on, you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, and let me do my presenter view. Hopefully you don't see those. All right, I think we're good. So let me go back and one screen here. Let's play the audio. Please get ready to adjust your microphones.
Still very high. And 10 should be absolutely dead quiet. Is that sounds more like what I was hearing. So that's not bad. 12's not horrible.
Okay, so it turns out that the buy is completely unusable. And so what we decided to do at this point was 2 of the members stayed at the buy to start packing up. And we decided to come down to the M&A bungalows and set up a big IR to give it a try. So now we were expected to be on the air November 2nd. And at this point, we still don't have a location. This is the results of the noise that we found at the M&A bungalow. Pretty much 10 over S9 noise across the board. So at this point, we're in pretty bad shape and we're very, very disappointed. So we've got new goals now. we need to find a low noise QTH. And whereas we had original goals before, they changed drastically, right? So we've got no place to operate. Luckily for us, this is McKinley and Arlene, who are the proprietors of M&A. They are the island power brokers. They were the ones that negotiated with the high chief for us for the use of the buy. They're owners of a construction company. They're owners of M&A bungalows. And what we decided to do at this point was to go out on November 3rd to look for a site. And these are the 9 different sites we visited. There's the Typhoon Shelter, the M&A Beach Bungalow. Long story short, we chose as our #1 option was the Urong Dock. This site was amazing. North America is directly to the right, Europe straight north, surrounded probably about 270 degrees of salt water all around. So what happened is McKinley calls the governor of the island and basically says to ask for permission for us to use this location. It was a public park. And it turns out that the governor was having a groundbreaking ceremony about midway through our expedition, and they wanted all the antennas and all the equipment taken down for 2 days. And as you guys know, setting up antennas and tearing down is a multi-day process. So we decided to skip the Urong Dock, and we ended up here. Our next choice was the stone monoliths. This is a national park for the island. It required permission from the governor to allow us to use this site. Here's what it looked like. 2 picnic shelters, one to the left, one to the right. The view looking straight ahead is North America. We're at about 450 feet up, and directly to the left is Europe. It was just a killer site, S0 noise. The downside of this location: no toilets, no running water, no power, no air conditioning, and we're exposed to the elements. But it was a gorgeous location. So now we've gone from an air-conditioned building with power to a field day operation at best. I have to meet with the governor. Here's a photograph on November 3rd of the governor and I. McKinley arranges for me to get permission from the governor in person. So I show up at his office, and I start explaining to him why I would like to rent a national monument site. And the meeting doesn't go very well to begin with. He's like, ham radio, what is that? Long story short, I get to the point where I say, well, I've applied for a license from the telecommunications office, and the chief engineer at the office, his name is Jonathan, and basically said if anyone had any questions as to what I was doing, to give him a call. So the governor says, what's his phone number? So the governor pulls out his cell phone, calls Jonathan. Within 30 seconds, the governor is laughing it up with Jonathan. It turns out that Jonathan and the mayor, or the governor, go back 20 or 30 years of working together. And pretty much we get permission immediately to operate from this site. So first thing, November 4th. So now we're 2 days late on getting on the air. We've got this location. Here's some of the photographs of, on the left here is Jack setting up the hex beam. Here's Robin helping. Here's Justin. Here's Jack, power and light. This guy was phenomenal. You know, we weren't planning to run from generators, so we had to make 2 or 3 2-hour trips to downtown Koror to go get parts to mate to the generator. The McKinley found us a 6 kilowatt generator, diesel generator, and we basically wired it all up, wired the stations up and got it working. This individual, Mamoon, we hired him from McKinley's construction company, and he pretty much was with us every day for the entire duration of the trip. He was indispensable in terms of getting us on the air. So here's the end of the the station, the site layout. We had a 85-foot 160 vertical with about 75 radials laid out. It was had 4 capacity hats, top hats. I think they were about 25 feet long each. We had 2 hex beams. One was primarily pointed to Europe, this one over here. The other one was pointed to North America, though there were times where we would, both Yagis were working North America and both were working Europe. So we turned them as we needed. This building over here was where we operated from. The second picnic shelter was where we stored our equipment. And just down here, just a little bit below the hill, is the big IR that did 80 through 30. These steps led down to the monoliths, the stone monoliths. So here's a short picture of the antenna setup, and I'll play it for you now. Let's see, why did it not play here? I'm sorry, it is not deciding to play. Hang on just a sec. Let me see what I can do here, if I can do something a little different. I'm sorry, this video is refusing to play, unfortunately. Oh, there we go. So as you can see, we're putting up the first hex beam. We've had the mast is about, I think it goes up to about 33 feet. And the direction that we're staring at right now is Europe. And here's a photograph or an image of a video of us putting up the big IR. This thing had about 65 to 71 radials. I don't remember exactly the number, but Mamoon was a big help in helping us get those things laid out. And there you go. So here's the station layout. We had 3 stations. Jack is at station 1. I'm at station 2. It's sort of an L-shaped. And here was the S3, the third station, which ran the 500-watt Elecraft. So basically 3 laptops, 3 K3Ss, 3 amps. These are the bandpass filters that we use, the 4 Oscar 3 Alpha filters. Luckily for us, from our location, we had very, very good cell service. And so essentially you'd select which station you were on. This is S1, S2, S3. And these filters basically were, the input to the filter from the amplifier, and the other port was the antenna. So you'd pick which antenna you'd like to use, what band you'd like to use. And super simple in terms of getting set up. So this is the diesel generator that McKinley brought. Diesel was very scarce on the island. We had to, for example, on Sundays, the local gas station was closed. So McKinley worked to get us a 55-gallon drum that we operated. We filled the generator from. One of the interesting things, luckily for us, I brought along with me, it's called, I think, Mr. Filter. And it's a filter that filters out water and impurities. And lucky for us, we did, because this diesel coming out of this old barrel was almost black. And as you guys know, diesel shouldn't be black. And I just think it was so much dirt and rust in this drum. But we basically we had a pump that we would pump fuel into this generator. So we were very, very happy. That evening we get on the band, and one of the first thing we did was we checked noise on 80 meters, and here is what it sounded like. Here's what 60 sounded like. So pretty much over the horizon radar from Palau, it wiped out 160, 80 meters, and 60 meters with about S9 to 10 over S9. So at that point, we decided we were just going to run FT8 on the low bands because there's no way we'd work anyone else. What was interesting is the Papua New Guinea expedition was going on at the same time. They ended up in 2 weeks making 1 CWQ on 160. And they too, from Papua New Guinea, had the same problem. So I think it's Chinese over the horizon radar pretty much wiping the low bands. So this is for some of you FT8 haters. Honestly, there is no way you're going to work from that part of the world anything other than FT8, because I think the bands are so bad. So we're finally on the air the evening of November 4th. Look, all the smiles. We are absolutely tickled pink. We're 2 days late, but we're on the air. Look at the view on November 5th. We are absolutely, it was just absolutely stunning and gorgeous, the location. Evening breezes. There were a lot of critters. There were bats, there were mosquitoes, there were rats. I mean, it was very, very primitive, but I couldn't say enough about the site. And remember when I told you if something could go wrong, it would on this trip? On November 6th, Robin tests positive for COVID. So she is basically isolated at the bungalow, and we're now down to 3 operators. One of the things that I didn't mention was Brian Moran was originally scheduled to go. He had an emergency the night before we left and had to stay back. So now we're down to 3 people trying to run 3 stations 24 hours a day. So what we ended up doing was I took the night shift. I basically worked about 15 hours from about maybe 7, 8 o'clock at night until 8 or 9 in the morning. And Jack and Justin picked up the day shift. Luckily for us, because we had great internet service, Brian was able to remote in and operate FT8 from Seattle. Barry decides to pay us a visit on November 7th. He brought a dozen donuts. He also brought his radio, his laptop, and he wanted help getting on FT8. So I took a few hours off of my day and got Gary set up so that he can operate FT8 on both his stations. And he's now active as Tango 88 Sugar from Palau, but we were happy to see him. Here's the view of the 160 install. We put it up November 7th. Again, 26 meters, top loaded, a bunch of radials. And this thing was just, it was pretty phenomenal. It played super well. We had Mamoon bringing us fresh coconuts. He taught us how to choose them from the tree, how to cut them open. And this guy was, in fact, I still email him maybe once a month. We keep in touch. He was that cool a dude. And there is Jack and Justin enjoying the fruits of their labor. On November 9th, I leave from my night shift at about 8 in the morning. Justin takes me back to M&A, and Jack shows up. And I remember commenting to Justin how dark it looked over the horizon. So the next videos that you see are taken after a typhoon sweeps through our area.
Well, we lost the walls, but we're holding on to the radios. Well, we just have massive squall take out the walls. So we got everything covered as best as we can, and we just got to wait it out. Antennas are still up at the moment, but that's pretty serious. Storm's slowing down a little bit. Hopefully it keeps slowing down. It's really bad. We haven't lost any of the antennas yet, but the 160 is barely hanging on. We just cinched up everything on the guys. The beams were leaning over quite a bit, and we lost all our walls. Trying to pack up the stations to keep them as dry as possible.
So as you can see, we had to pack all this gear out a quarter mile to the van over a muddy path and dirt road to basically try and dry out the equipment. So here we've got, remember I told you we were pretty much the only ones at the M&A bungalows. So we basically used their indoor cafeteria to open up the radios. Here we've got Jack with a headlamp, you know, trying to dry the equipment out the best we can. Part of the problem is it's super humid there. Power was out throughout the island, so trying to get these things to dry was very, very difficult. When power came back 6 or 7 hours later, we turned on the air conditioning in the cafeteria and let it run overnight. So we were off the air for about 31 hours while the equipment dried. So we're pretty excited to thinking that we're going to get back on the air. And we get a call from McKinley, says there's a problem with the generator. They couldn't get it started. I honestly believe there was nothing wrong with the generator other than when we shut down, when Jack and Justin shut down super quick, they just killed the generator, but they had left the switch on for the alternator, and you can't start the generator with that switch with the alternator connected. So the mechanic shows up, and by the time we get there, he's already disassembled the generator. And this is the end result of his handiwork. And as you can see, there's blue smoke coming out. He blew the head gasket and we were pretty much done. By the way, that was the only generator on the island that we could find. So McKinley and crew come together. They basically start working to find us another power source. Luckily, McKinley had a very, very old generator, diesel generator as well, but it was no longer 240 volts, it's 110 volts. So now we have basically to do some serious rewiring of our electrical system, making multiple runs to Coror to handle the new plug and 120. So we opened up one of the amps and it took 33 screws to open it up. And those are the screws that you see here off to the left. And we could no longer run more than 600 watts on FT8 because none of the generators could support the flex at 1.5 kW. So luckily for me, I had shipped one of my own 230 volt generators. Now it's a gas powered generator. So now we got two fuel sources to go deal with. But luckily for me, we had a 3 kW 230 volt generator to use, and we pressed it into service. And on November 10th, we're back on the air. So in this case, you know, we've only been on the air about 2.5 days so far, and almost a week has gone by. So what we've decided to do is basically all the operators are running multiple modes. So I would be in a CW pileup and also running 2 FT8 stations at the same time. And so it was very, very difficult, but we're back on the air November 10th after being off the air for 31 hours. We didn't repair the 160 antenna until November 12th. So we only had 2 additional days on 12 meters, but 60 meters was just incredible. So now we're basically racing against the clock. Robin comes back, she's wearing her mask. The temperature's in the high 80s. Humidity is probably pushing 80%. A lot of mosquitoes. As you can see, there's this green netting over us to keep us somewhat mosquito free, but basically we just lather with, you know, anti-mosquito repellent the best we could. November 10th was pretty much the first day with no emergencies. And basically we had 4 days of just uninterrupted QSOs. And here we are packing up. On November 15th, CTSI comes to pick up our equipment. There's a big downpour, a squall. So we're trying to pack up gear. One of the big concerns was everything was soaking wet when we packed them. And these are, all of our equipment was gonna be put on an ocean going, you know, ocean freight to come back home. So we weren't gonna see this for 3 months. And we were really concerned about mold and on all of our gear. So as you can see, it was quite difficult, but CTSI takes our equipment the afternoon, early afternoon on November 15th. Our airplane isn't going to arrive until 3 o'clock on November 16th. So Gary had told us about Tokyo Rose and where the Japanese operated during World War II. So we took that afternoon and drove out to the site. And this is where the transmitters were located. As you can see to the left, these are one of the 3 towers that had held their phased arrays. It's toppled, some old ammunition shells. This is the building where the transmitter was located. And so anyway, that was really the end of our trip. That evening, we get on a plane and head home. We say goodbye to Palau and hello to Seattle. Ryan shows up to pick us up, and here's the team at the SeaTac airport. Here's the results of our operation. We did almost 30,000 Qs. 10,000 of them were uniques, and we worked DXCC from 6 continents. This is the breakdown of the operation. CW was 25%, SSB was about 20%, FT8 was about 55% of the total Qs. This is just sort of a breakdown of what we did. Obviously 10 meters and 15 meters were phenomenal. Obviously, if we didn't have all the issues we had, 12 should have been up there as well as 17. But these were the two money bands. We made 36 or 37 QSOs on 6 meters, primarily to Japan. In his free time, Justin brought a little 2-meter transceiver with a satellite antenna. So he did some sat work and got 12 QSOs out of it. One of the big things for me was on 160. I have several good friends that live in the UK, Scotland, and Ireland. But they were telling me that prior to this expedition, there were only 2 QSOs reported from the UK reported ever in the amateur radio hobby from Palau. And when we were done with Tango 88 Whiskey Alpha, we had 30+ UK stations in the log. So made a lot of UK stations happy. So that was, you know, anytime I would see them get decoded, they would get moved to the top of the queue. And 60 meters was the other positive thing. It had never been activated before from Palau, and we're proud to say that we got about 334 queues in the log. One of the important things that came out of this expedition was, remember I told you Brian would log in, and so Brian and I pretty much did the night shift. It was daytime in Seattle when he would remote in, and it's evening for me. And so Brian and I spent a lot of time thinking about what we could do to WSJT to improve it. One of the issues that came up was it was very obvious something was wrong with how WSJTX selected the number of streams and the number of QSOs. For example, I would tell WSJTX, I want 3 streams. And what I was seeing was sometimes it would use 1, sometimes it'd use 2, sometimes it'd use 3, even though the queue was filled with people waiting to be worked. Brian found the bug. I should say, Brian, the dev team on WSJTX found the bug, and we now have about a 30% increase in throughput. The other thing that Brian added was queue management for the Fox operators. So for example, if we're working nothing but Japanese and we get a North America decode as an example, we can now move the North America call sign to the very, very top of the queue. So it just depends on what DXEC entities got the priority. We can now do a better job managing the queue. He's also added more visibility into what WSJTX is doing. And one of the important things that we noticed when we were there was we actually had a pirate that pirated the T88 Whiskey Alpha call sign. So one of the things that Brian and I talked about is what could we do to try and solve that problem? And this is what the dev team has come up with WSJTX. So just for, use your imagination. Imagine that this screen here is the Fox's screen, and all of these are the hounds that are being worked by the Fox. One of the things that you should notice is that every so often in this new version of software, the Fox will send out a 6-digit message. In this case, it's sending out 265084, and it sends it out at this date timestamp. So in this case, the timestamp is 20:51:30 Zulu. And what the hounds will be able to do is the hounds can now go to the Fox's website, and the Fox will display the 6-digit code and the timestamp associated with it. This website will be updated several minutes after the Fox has already, or I should say, all of the Fox transmitters have transmitted this code. So it allows the hounds to be able to verify that the 6-digit message that they are receiving from the Fox is correct, and therefore it is the true Fox. I wanted to do a big shout out again. I spoke highly of DX Engineering. These guys are amazing. I can't tell you, they call up most of us expeditioners asking, what can we do for you? So big shout out to DX Engineering. Step IR, always gracious, loaned us 2 big IRs to use. And I can't say enough about Arlen Communications. Their headsets are bar none. So big shout out to them. And that is pretty much the end of my presentation. I've listed email addresses of all the participants that if you guys would like to get a hold of, this is their contact info. And at this point, I'll stop sharing. If anybody has any questions, be more than happy to answer them.
This is John, N7NWL. Rob, does anybody have questions for Rob? Other than the 14,000 that you're just sitting there mulling over about you know, why do you do this? Why do we do this for fun? And, you know, related things like that. But questions from our group? Are there any questions from any of our Zoom guests?
Did she recover from COVID?
Did we have a successful recovery from the COVID?
Yes, Robin was actually, it was fairly mild. All of us had been pretty much boosted up the best we could. She had a very, very mild case. I mean, I think day 1, day 2, she had her mask on and she was picking trash on the beach. So she was really eager to go. I think we were probably a little bit more cautious about having her day 4, day 5 with us when she was still testing positive, but she wore her mask and nobody else got sick.
Good, good. That's always good to hear. Anybody else got any questions, comments, thoughts? When are we going to go do this? Okay, so that got a strong round of chuckles. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyone else? I just wanted to say, for me, I got to tell you something. I was invited way back when. I had called around to a lot of the prominent expeditions when I, wanted to start going off and, doing this kind of stuff. And everybody pretty much turned me down because they didn't know who I was. And so it was sort of beneficial in the sense that I just decided to do it, right? Get on an airplane. The first expedition in my life was the Bud of Buddy Pole Group invited me down to St. Lucia. They had about 8 or 9 ops and using their 100 watts and the Buddy Pole. I remember calling my girlfriend at the time and I basically said, this will forever change my life. I knew 2 days into this that my life had changed. I'd fallen in love with this and I'm going to do this as long as I can.
Well, good,
Hey,
cool.
Rob, I have a question.
Yes.
You just said that, you want to be doing this for as long as you can. So where is the next one that you are going to go? What place is it going to be?
Paul N7QT and I are heading to Tuamotu province, which is H40WA. In fact, I'm heading to California next week. We got probably about 2,000 pounds of gear, probably more, that we're going to load up. We are going to air ship it to Honiara. And then we'll have a customs broker take it from Honiara and put it on the inner island ferry to get it to Tuamotu. And then when we're done with the expedition, we will probably send it back ocean freight. So immediately after that, I think that one's going to be early October. The dates just changed, but it'll be mid-October through the end of I think we get back to Honiara from Tuamotu on November 9th. At that point, this group here, this Tango 88 Whiskey Alpha, will show up 3 days later, and we are going to activate H44 at that time. So I am going to do 2 back-to-backs in the Solomon Islands. And I come home, I think I fly home November 31st, so I'm missing Thanksgiving with the family. I'm home for 2 days. I'm heading to the Ivory Coast for 2 weeks. I had hoped to activate the Ivory Coast on a solo mission, but they basically refused to give me a license. I needed 2 or more ops to activate the Ivory Coast. I've got a buddy of mine that's retiring and he invited me over for his retirement party. So I will be there for 2 weeks. I come back and then January 9th, I'll be in San Diego and we're heading out to Clipperton on, I think, January 11th. So Clipperton will be after that. I'm pretty much gone from home from October till beginning of March.
Wow. Wonderful. That's great news.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that for us.
It's a lot of fun.
Okay, anything else from the CADXA group for Rob? Yeah, how'd the equipment turn out 3 months later after coming back wet?
Actually, shockingly well. Some of the tools were damaged. The amps were great. I mean, I shipped one of my Flex amps. That was great. I've actually switched from the SPE amplifiers because those things were failing like crazy. A lot of bad luck with that one. So I switched to this new amp. It's called a Gemini DX1200. It's a company in the UK. My UK buddies turned me onto that. It's been rock solid. So those are the two amps. Everything's great. One of the things we had done early on, like on the K3s, we went to stainless steel screws. They originally had a rust issue. No, the equipment was in great shape. It really was. And we're pretty much using a lot of this for the upcoming trip. On the Solomon Islands, I would hope if band conditions are good, we are going to be super loud. We are going to be setting up vertical dipole arrays on the ocean. They've got about an 11 dB gain at 1 degree takeoff. We're going to have kilowatt amplifiers. I want to be loud and I want to work as many people as we can. So it's going to be pretty exciting. I'm excited. Hopefully you guys just work us even though you don't need the cues.
Well, good. I think, thanks, Rob. I think Virgil's got a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to close with, I know I saw your presentation on Palau and at Visalia and chased you out into the hallway. I was like, I know the Arizona guys want to hear this. So thanks for coming here tonight and presenting.
Thank you very much. And happy to do it again.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. I appreciate it.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
And Rob, if you want to stick around for a minute, we have a second program that started to evolve about 30 minutes ago. Anyway, Ned's going to do a brief review on the Ducey Island update on the radios in the box thing and some things that coming up.
That'd be great. I've got an 8 o'clock appointment, so I've got to run. Take care, Ned.
Okay.
Great seeing you.
Okay, thanks, Rob. 7-3, my friend.
Bye-bye. 7-3, guys.
Okay, ciao.
I was hoping he'd hang in there because he was part of the team. How many people worked BP6A on some mode or another? That's good. About half of you. That's good.
I did 7 bands.
This if you don't know, the radio in the box system is the brainchild of George Wallner, AA7JV, who one of the more interesting people I ever met. I traveled with him to Baker Island in 2018, and I brought to that expedition the concept of a distributed kind of radio network for the island, where some of the positions were on land and some of the positions were on the boat because of the demands to keep the human footprint about Baker Island down to a minimum. And so the idea of using a boat for operators to be was new and different. And so that didn't go as well as we had hoped, but we learned a lot about that idea. And what George brought to that DXpedition was his first radio in the box system. It included, flex radios, and then this amplifier. We called it Franken amp. It was strange. It was a box covered with switches and knobs and no documentation and no labeling, and none of us wanted to get anywhere near it. But he used it for his 160 meter operating. He would get serious power out of this amplifier without bringing generators to their knees. That's a real problem on CW with a generator. They're just almost barely enough power. You can really cause them to cycle and have a lot of line variations. But what he had in the amplifier was this kind of power reserve system, these super caps that would supply the energy for the first part of a DIT or a dash and let the generator catch up and make up the rest. And that was a very important part of this whole concept of these radios in the box. So the Northern Cal DX Foundation awarded him a grant to complete the design and development of the rib and to make 6 copies for upcoming DXpeditions. And this summer, George launched his boat that he had been developing for the last 3-4 years, which included space for the storage of these ribs on the boat, as well as this nifty little craft, which would deploy the ribs to the shore, sort of launched it like it was a marine launching system. It would take, the boat would take off with the ribs in place. They would get to shore, roll to a point on the beach, and you would instantly have your generators already in place. And all you had to, and the ribs were on that craft, and all you had to do is to grab the antennas, deploy them like umbrellas, hook it all up, fire up the generator, and get back on the boat, go back to the boat. And he could deploy the whole system in an hour. Was the concept, and he did that a couple of times. So this adventure started in April. He left from Costa Rica and sailed out to TI-9, and Don Greenbaum and I, N1DG, operated the rib on the boat on 6 meters, and we caught a lot of 6 meter, that TEP openings we had in the spring. We caught a lot of those. So we're I don't know, about 1,000 stations or contacts were made over the course of that of the sail out of Costa Rica around TI-9 and our way out to the French Polynesia. When we got to French Polynesia, we set up a quick operation, ran for about a week, and made about 11,000 Qs, which is, not a big deal, but for a country that's number 300 on the most wanted list, it was a pretty sizable accomplishment. It was basically done by George on the boat operating one rib on 11680, and Don and I operating pretty much the rest of the spectrum on FT8. So that got the word out that it's real, it's here, it's coming, and so the next stop was going to be of significance, was going to be Ducie Island. So starting, I forget when it started, in May sometime, we assembled a team of kind of world-class operators. Okay, as this is the part of this whole process of trying to get this thing fleshed out, was to get people, credible operators, to see if this is a real thing that we can do, is to use this system in a real DXpedition with real CW pilots. And so, I mean, we had Marty Lane, and we had CT1BOH and F6EXV, and we've, the calls of real operators, and we had a sign up list, and it went pretty well. We had made 60-some thousand Qs. We did sideband. We didn't think we could do that, and the basic concept is that the rib, which goes ashore, has in it the flex radio, and is connected to the PC, which is on the boat, and it's connected through a 900 megahertz kind of a wireless bridge, and in a stable environment, it worked very well. If you tested with all the pieces and parts on a boat, it was perfect. We had issues though when we deployed on the island, and that link, while it has guaranteed delivery of packets, the timing in which the packets were reassembled in the correct order out on the shore, sometimes there was some variability in that, which if you're moving files or sending video, to make it not objectionable, you just buffer things a little bit longer, add a little bit more delay to get it to be in real time, or real time but delayed. But the problem with what started to happen as we got into the DXpedition is that some of the software for the Flex system, there's these 3 components of software that are required to be run. Those run on the PC on the boat, and they try to maintain connections and streams going to the radios on shore. And whenever there was a disruption of the stream, it would sort of lose its mind, lose its configuration, and had to be rebuilt, restarted. If you've got a Flex, the process. It happens every once in a while. It's annoying. This would happen every 5 minutes. Okay, some days, every time I used it, it crashed. Okay, so we have work to do. But the fact that we made, I don't know, and Ducie, we made 11,000 QSOs on CW is not bad. That's pretty good accomplishment. I mean, if you run a pileup on, big time pileups on CW, you have 1,000 people calling you. The problem in this whole idea is that when you hear for the first time what's coming out of the radio, it's a half a second later than real time. Okay. So you hear the end of a call. Okay. So you have to wait for them to send it again, and then you can work it. So you felt like a lid in that you can't copy CW, but you can. You're perfect. I mean, like I tell you, told the lineup of people operating, you just have to be a little more patient, or get all the hams in the world to realize, oh, this is satellite communication, baby. Let me hold off on sending my call just a little bit to break this pileup. And I think that's what's going to happen. People are going to have to realize, oh, this is a satellite communication. Let me change the way I play on a pileup, because otherwise you don't get through. And it's because of that delay. It's the nature of the beast. Essentially, the delay between the radio and the operator is you're going through Starlink, and it's another digital, or excuse me, a network connection. Same issues with TCP, and you have to have to deal with that. Now, partway through the operation, we switched from using, I forget which software we were using. We switched to Mumble. If you know, everybody here know about Mumble. If you're a gamer, okay, Mumble is sort of this real-time chat channel. You set up a Mumble server, and you have all these clients that join a channel, and at one of the clients is the radio and its audio. So when you set up a channel, the radio, whatever's playing on the radio, is available to anybody who's listening on the channel. So it's the only delay is from the radio to the server. Now, the gentleman who ran that part of the operation, Jerry W1VE, happens to own servers or have presence on servers in Singapore and in Seattle, Phoenix, and a few other places. So he was playing games with which ones to use, and we found the best service was using the one in Seattle. It was best linked to the earth stations for the Starlink system, so that delay was minimized. And we started chiseling away at the delay, and we'll get better at it as we go along. But this is just the first step. This is the first time it's deployed, and making 60,000 queues is significant. And we have on our sites for later this year 2 more islands, which are even more rare than Ducey, that will benefit and only be possible because of the nature of the deployment of the system to the shore. The fact that there's no tents, there's no toilet, people aren't eating there, they aren't taking a piss in the woods. It keeps the people who want to preserve the environment happy with the idea. So and one of our operations is an island where the fish and wildlife may ride along with the magnet to get to that island, much like we did on Baker. We had someone from the fish and wildlife community on our trip, and we saved them a lot of dough by providing the transportation to the island and all the necessities of living on there for the week or so we were there. So this is coming around. It's maybe not what you like in DXpeditions. I know we have problems with the IOTA folks. They have a rule that they even amplified recently in concert with our expedition because they didn't like what we're doing. But I've traveled with the Brits for years and years on the Voodoo contest group, and I only have 4 words to say about that: screw the Brits. I have a different word I use, but I wanted to keep it nice. I understand it's a joke. Sorry, Biden joke. So they say, boots on the ground. That's their rule, and we don't have boots on the ground. We could put some boots on the ground, but and I don't know why you have to boots on the ground. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, these are contacts that are valid in ARRL, so who cares? But they have special rules for IOTA, so we don't make them happy, and I frankly don't care. But if you are not a fan of that, I'm sorry, but this is the only way to play the game on some of these islands. So this is the way it's going to have to be. So change is hard for some people, I guess. But anyway, so it's an interesting project. I get to play systems engineer because it's a kind of, we need to develop a lab. We're building a lab in the Bay Area. We have rib number 5. It'll be positioned there. We're going to set up, get a very high fidelity implementation of what it is, and when it's deployed, we're going to work on software definitions, testing, training. If we turn the system over to, say, we approached the Clipperton group about it, but they had some issue with us going to Ducey and messing up other people's plan to go to that island, and they don't like what we're trying to do. And again, sorry, but you could add more operators to your DXpedition and cut your costs. And sorry, but that's what our mission for the foundation is, to help enable expeditions and reduce the cost of expeditions by reducing the number of people you have to bring to the island on it. And that's going to make a major impact on some of these places, as you can imagine. Anyway, so that's the status of it at this time. Going to be more fun stuff coming up later this year. Yeah, Tom.
I assume that this could probably not ever be used on Nube, for example.
But that landing craft that George developed will not take on 12-foot rollers. Okay, it needs to be in moderately calm seas. Crassy, K1LZ, he's working on a plan. He apparently has got infinite money, and he's talking about helicoptering a container. Same idea, rib in a container. Okay, a radio in a container, where there's 1 or 2 mountain climbing expeditionists who fire up the generator, and through Starlink, they can have an army of operators manning the station over the course of that's his approach to the Beauvais situation. So and that might be the way to go as well. But I don't like that because it doesn't have hams involved. I mean, I feel that it somehow, somewhere, there needs to be hams, involved in this thing. Sneak? No, no. These have to be like every other DXpedition. These have to be, meet the criteria of a valid DXpedition, and having a license, permission to operate is going to be the challenge in North Korea, no matter what the hardware you got is. And Dennis, having maybe radio and a ball, maybe a radio and a basketball. All right, that's it for now. So time for the break, right?
Okay, thanks, Ned. I appreciate it. One quick thing right before the break, because I'm ready for soda and cookies. Bob, K7BHM had sent something out on Groups IO or Slack or something about he had some estate items from a silent key, and he'd like to make a real quick presentation on some of the stuff he brought.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not a silent key yet, but one of our previous members, WB9CAC, has become very ill. They've had to move to assisted living. He and his wife, very close friends of ours, my wife and I. And he asked me to come over and grab some stuff. And I've got the table full of things over there. If you see something you like, make me an offer. That's all we want to do, is just kind of get rid of it, give him a little bit of cash. And there's a couple of free items over there too. But take a look if you want. Take it with you. You know where I live as far as QRZ.com. Send me a check. It'd be great. Really would appreciate it. Any questions? I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at the stuff, but there's some new items and some used. There's even a packet thing over there. Do they even do packet anymore? Probably not. Okay. That'll go into the strap bin then. Okay. Anyway, if you would just let me know. That'd be all right.
Thanks, Bob. Okay, that takes care of that. It's give or take 8:13, 8:14. Let's do a 15-minute break. There's soda in the red ice chest, bottled water in the blue ice chest. They both started with ice cubes on them, but they kind of like turned to water. And there's a bunch of cookies, so y'all have at it. And then after we come back, we're going to have a new feature. We're going to have a business meeting that lasts less than 10 minutes, but actually accomplishes some stuff.